The U.S. Federal Reserve will transition to the new ISO 20022 messaging format on July 14th, the same week that is now being called Crypto Week, where we will see the Clarity Act, the Anti CBDC Act, as well as the Genius Act all be discussed. To that point, Trump's big, beautiful bill passed over the holiday weekend. And my question is, does this open some doors for further crypto adoption here in the United States? And to that point, let's talk a few altcoins. Kronos, the blockchain responsible for supporting the crypto.com ecosystem, has just achieved instant finality, making it one of 15 chains with this particular feature. My question is it now time to make a move into crypto.com? And we have a little bit of drama coming from the Ripple XRP community. It has been revealed that the primary asset in the hidden role relationship will be RLUSD and not the XRP token that many were speculating. We're going to get down to the bottom of it to figure out, is Ripple getting ready to abandon XRP altogether? And before we get out of here, we got to take a look at the gaming space, ladies and gentlemen. Tezos. I know, right? Shocking. They've landed a pretty interesting first-person shooter title. The thing about this is that it's backed by some pretty big players, and they're not coming from the world of gaming. So if you're new, welcome. My name is Wade. You're listening to another edition of the DHN Crypto Podcast. I've been in the space since 2019 and I've researched a boatload of assets. But the number one reason I run this show is to share all of that knowledge with you. All I ask in return, if you find value, hit that subscribe button. Now, I am still in the holiday spirit, as you can tell by the shirt. I was going to do a show for the 4th, but I spent that time with the family, guys. I don't know. You guys can't blame me for that. But let's get into the show, guys, because this could be the most important week in the entire crypto timeline, going all the way back to the early 80s when research began on cryptography and how to connect distributed computer systems. That's how important this is. Because confirmed, ISO 20022 will be implemented July 14th for the Fed Wire Funds service. This will also include the FedNow instant payment system, which we have done extensive research on. But there's another element to this story, guys, that I'm going to reveal to you towards the end of this segment. But first, I want to get you ready for the changes here, because there has been a number of changes since we last discussed this ISO topic. Number one being the list of known ISO 20022 ready crypto projects. Now, listed here on this graphic, I did add the originals. We'll call them the originals. The few 5 or 6 assets that were originally associated as being a part of this transition. You have Quant, Ripple, Stellar, Hedera, XDC, IOTA. I did not add Algorand to this list because one of their leadership, Stacey Warden, the former or current CEO of the Algorand Foundation. I believe she's still the CEO of the Algorand Foundation. But I'll never forget an interview she did where she explicitly stated, I have no idea what ISO 20022 is. This was 2022. So for that reason, I didn't add Algorand to this particular graphic. However, if you believe that Algorand is one of these ISO ready cryptos, then more power to you. I'm not knocking that at all. This list contains the assets that I have literally seen documentation for where they explicitly state that this network is ISO ready. And I know you're looking at some of these names and you've probably turned away from the video, but if you're still here, let me explain to you why you see these names. Crypto.com, we discovered a couple years ago that not only will they be able to run ISO 20022 messages, but they're also ISO compliant in the field of information technology as well as cybersecurity. Then we have Polkadot, who recently, towards the end of last year, set up a relationship in the SEPA instant payment area. The SEPA instant payment area focuses on the EU market, and it has been running ISO 20022 going on about 3 years now. It was I want to call it magic money, but we reported on it. It's on the channel. Polkadot will be facilitating ISO 20022 payments if they haven't started already, because remember, this story came out towards the end of last year. The IOTA network, when it comes to microtransactions and the various RWAs that they look to get involved with, ISO 20022 will be needed as the rest of the participating financial institutions in the United States, which IOTA has been leaning heavily into recently, will be using. And then you have other networks like Corium and Stronghold who entered the market focused at this ISO 20022 transition. What I'm getting at here, guys, is that the list that we originally discovered, the ISO protocol family that was discovered in July of 2022, there's that July date again, that list isn't as exclusive because implementing ISO 20022 is simply adding the code. Any of these networks can do it. That is why you see names like Bitcoin, thanks to the XDC network and a company that used to be known as Impel. The technology has since been incorporated into the XDC network, but they have an ISO 2022 bridge that allows you to run those transactions on the Bitcoin network. On Bitcoin. People still ain't digested that one. And if you can pull off that same mechanism, thanks to XDC, then surely Ethereum, Solana, Tron will be next, especially when you take a look at what Chainlink has been doing on the infrastructure level for assets like Ethereum, Solana, and Tron. All of the pieces are coming together, folks. And it won't just be U.S. banks, credit unions, and financial service providers. This will also include the likes of Visa, MasterCard, and other payment infrastructure providers that we have researched and are very familiar with. In addition, the FedWire, Federal Reserve, they published this newsletter. And in the June edition, they gave us an idea of just how ready the U.S. market is. Guys, you look all the way over to the left. As of May 30th, everybody's at 100%. They're ready to go. They are ready to do this. So, like I said at the top of the segment, this ISO 20022 thing, it's so fascinating because it has evolved so much over time. And I remember going back and forth with many people in the space about if it will even happen. Will it even impact the assets that everyone assumes that it will impact? Guys, what we have come to understand is that this represents the multi-chain renaissance that is about to enter crypto. We have seen little hints here and there of the most prominent networks attaching themselves to other prominent networks. This is why Chainlink has been the topic of discussion all throughout 2025 as being the primary connector of networks. They're also working with traditional financial institutions like JP Morgan to bring traditional financial assets on chain. So clearly, we're in a multi-chain world, okay? That means that more than one network will be plugged into this. Like I said, I have done extensive research on the FedNow, the Federal Reserve, this ISO movement, this transition. Going back into looking into the information, preparing for this segment, right? I stumbled upon this quote here from Citigroup. They're getting ready to unveil yet another platform that will allow traditional financial institutions to adopt this new messaging standard. But I want to point out to you a particular sentence here where they say, to reap the benefits of migration, banks will need a partner that can connect the dots with links to clearing systems globally and the advanced solutions necessary to deliver streamlined access. So what have we seen in recent months? Just in the last, since the top of the year, ladies and gentlemen, we have seen more traditional banking players, traditional finance players getting a lot closer to blockchain. Yes, because the current administration has increased trust around doing so. It just confirms the speculation that we have had for years about the fact that without a few of these networks, not all of them, but certain networks are going to be very crucial in aiding traditional financial players in this transition. Citi just confirmed it. Now, I'll add another layer to it. In the FedNow documentation, there is a rule that states non-financial companies can partner with third-party tech providers. I can't remember the rule in the moment. Please forgive me. But I covered it in one of the docs that I have available to the members of this channel called FedNow, the Bigger Agenda. As a matter of fact, I led with this entire piece of evidence. It clearly states that participants within the FedNow or FedWire system, if needed, can contract a third-party tech provider to improve their services. The third-party tech providers that we are all familiar with that are capable of doing this are the blockchain networks that are often associated with this ISO transition. Now, again, this is going to mark the final wave of the transition. The United States, Europe, UK, they needed to catch up. But you see Australia, Switzerland, Japan, China, India, other very powerful economies have already adopted this messaging standard. Now, with that information, you can take a look at how more advanced some of their digital payment infrastructures are. As far as I know, India has the best digital payments infrastructure on the planet, and it has been that way ever since they adopted this ISO messaging standard. We already know how China is coming. We already know how Japan is coming. Switzerland is the financial epicenter of the entire world, and they already adopted ISO 20022. So, knowing that as well, going back to the list of ISO compatible networks, we haven't even begun to dig into the networks that are working in India, China, Switzerland that could potentially already be running ISO transactions. There could already be ISO ready networks in the market. And they could have already been here for years because a lot of these nations, they picked up the standard before 2020, ladies and gentlemen, prior to 2020. I made a post on X this morning, may have been a bit deep, but there's something special about the number 14. There's something very special about the number 14. And then we also can't forget about stable coins in this discussion. And it's fitting because this morning it all hit me. There's something special about the number 14, guys. Some of the OG listeners, you may remember, every chance I get, especially since we've been covering Circle the last few months. Every chance I get, I say, global stablecoin arrangements, here they come. Global stablecoin arrangements, here they come. Where was I getting that from? In 2020, G20 nations came together and agreed upon a plan to reduce cross-border payments worldwide. They didn't come up with a particular end date for when this would happen, but this was in 2020, under the chaos of the COVID-19 pandemic. Turn your attention to building block number 14. Adopt a harmonized version of ISO 20022 for message formats. There's something about the number 14. On July 14th, we know the migration will happen in one day. Starting July 14th, we know they're going to be discussing the Clarity Act, the Anti-CBDC State Surveillance Act, as well as the Genius Act around stablecoins, right? The Clarity and the Anti-CBDC Act, that actually falls under Pillar B, regulatory, supervisory, and oversight frameworks. I see that as just being a review of what they've already done, because to my knowledge, A, B, and C have already been complete. That's 13 different building blocks. Building block 13, pursue interlinking of payment systems. What has Robinhood been doing the last few months? What has Chainlink been doing the last few months? Have we not seen Axlar, Wormhole, Aster Network, all of these new interoperability chains rising to the surface? Then we go back to 14 here. Adopt a harmonized version of ISO for message formats. 14. July 14th is when this is supposed to happen. Same time, July 14th through the 18th. 18. It's 19 building blocks. Almost had you there. But July 14th through the 18th, they're going to be discussing A, B, C, and D all together. By the time we get to the end of the month, all 19 of these building blocks will be complete. Moral of the story is this, ladies and gentlemen. It didn't matter what you held over the last 5 years. This was inevitable. The G20, the group of nations, the US, China, Russia, Africa, Australia, list goes on. All the nations that on the surface appear to be beefing with each other just coordinated a global plan. And they're just about finished. Knowing this, guys, to me, it seems that blockchain was the plan all along. Like I said, didn't matter what you were holding. If you were just here, you would have benefited. Bitcoin, XRP, Solana, Stellar, it truly didn't matter. You would have benefited. And folks, if the G20 nations were able to coordinate on this plan behind the scenes without any of us truly being privy to it, what is the next step? What comes after this? I think we got hints of that in a piece of legislation that our president passed over the holiday, Trump's big, beautiful bill. Coming up, I'm going to share with you some insights that I have from the bill. To me, it appears as though there are a couple conditions in it that will pave way for some pretty interesting adoption in the crypto space. Stay tuned. Hey guys, I got a quick message for you. Let's say you're looking to buy some crypto, like the ones mentioned in this video. Consider using our crypto exchange partner, Uphold. With Uphold, you get access to more than 200 crypto assets through its simple-to-use trading platform. Uphold has been around more than a decade, so it is a name you can trust. With over $2 billion in reserves and $44 billion in trading volume, I've yet to lose a trade on Uphold. To the more experienced investor out there, Uphold also has a line of precious metals and national currencies for more diversification. For me, I'm having fun using Uphold's baskets tool. Uphold lets us set aside a certain amount of money to invest in different sectors of crypto. With one click, you can diversify into the big three, meme coins, or the financial assets like Hedera, Stellar, and XTC. But listen, crypto assets are very volatile, and it is always best to manage your risk and do your own research before using any platform. I recommend Uphold because before I was an affiliate, I was and still am a user. So if you use the link below, it helps support the channel. I want to thank you in advance. Okay, so I want to talk about Trump's BBB, big beautiful bill. I'm not going to take a political stance here. That's not our game. Our takes center around the crypto element, the blockchain perspective. And in looking at the documentation for Trump's big beautiful bill, I saw a few things that may open the door, may pave the way for crypto adoption, and I'm gonna tell you why. It focuses on two sections: medical and alternative energy. Now, again, I'm not going to take a stance either way because, to be quite honest, okay, I'll take one. This could be one of the greatest pieces of legislation in American history. Based on my interpretation of the documentation and the information that I gathered, one of my sources I shared in the community tab. It was a 45-minute video, broke down the entire bill. It was unbiased. As a matter of fact, it was AI generated, which is something that AI is perfect for. Unbiased takes, okay? But I'm watching that, and I was able to get a comprehensive understanding of what's all in this bill. So I'm basing this take here, on the conclusions that I reached. Quite frankly, this is going to force an improvement to medical care in the United States. It will force an improvement to education in the United States. And I can also see the various ways where we'll see job growth here in the United States. Now I finally get it. Okay? I was a bit worried first, Donald. Had me nervous. But bringing it back around, the two sections that I think we could see some major crypto adoption development come out of, it's medical and alternative energies. Starting with medical. Again, based off of the research that I've done, some of the sections in his bill attempt to address the lack of communication between healthcare systems. Because, again, a lot wrapped up in this bill is a lot of that addressing fraud within the government, wasted spending, things of that nature. Now, when we're talking about Medicare, food stamps, government assistance, let's just be honest here. We all know. All right. We got a few people in our families that do it. Okay. Despite of how much success we have made, we still got people in our families that do it. If not in your family, immediately somebody on the block, you see it every day. Okay. So there's no denying that is a problem. What I'm focused on is the communication between the healthcare systems. Because some of you may know, my son, pride and joy of my life, he's autistic. And one of the biggest issues we have is communicating, is the healthcare programs that we have set up for him, communicating with the other healthcare programs. That's always been our problem. In his big, beautiful bill, there is a section that aims to address that. Now, this is where my focus got deeper. Because there are various applications in the blockchain space that focus on bridging healthcare systems. Just recalling off the top of my head, VeChain and their MyBaby application. You have XRP Healthcare running on the XRP ledger. There's a medical-based application on Algorand. There's one on Hedera. Again, forgive me for not having the names ready, but a simple Google search will show you what I'm talking about. Simply put, what I'm seeing, what I speculate, is that this added pressure on refining and improving the medical system will force people to come up with solutions. And because we know our guy is already crypto forward, he's put different people in place to manage digital assets. July 14th. Okay. That's what I'm just going to start calling it now. July 14th is when everything changes. With that, there'll be an even more attractive environment to build these particular government-based use cases. SKUX on Hedera. Remember that little section they got on their website that talks about SNAP benefits and DHS and working with the government, things like that? This is when those things begin to matter. I love observing this phenomenon in crypto, where a lot of applications will hit the market way before the problem arises. That's the sort of a situation that we have here. Now, on the other side of this, potentially having a much greater impact, a more immediate impact, is his approach towards renewable energies. Okay. In particular, its impact on the electric vehicle market. I'm hearing all of the funds, all the lifelines for the electric vehicle phenomenon is about to be cut. And they're getting cut before the end of the year. That is going to have a dramatic impact on a lot of assets that we have covered in the past. And here it comes. I'm about to say it. Energy Web Token. All right. Now, the only out would be geothermal, because geothermal has been studied and proven to be, quite useful in the mining of Bitcoin. And with us approaching less than 1 million Bitcoin to be mined, there will be a mining race. Best believe me when I tell you this. But the only out is geothermal. On the other side, I think this is going to have sweeping impacts throughout the space because of how many projects have developed eco-friendly or green projects in the last 5 years, following the guise of sustainable development goals passed down from the UN, promoted by the World Economic Forum. Energy Web Token, VeChain, Power Ledger, Hedera. Honestly, Hedera has Dovu. They have so many eco-friendly initiatives, right? And applications that were in development. I see all of that being shut down immediately, right? Immediately. With the exception of systems, software systems that will help manage distributed energy resources. So let's turn that around a little bit, because you have to understand what an asset like Energy Web does. It provides a decentralized operating system for energy suppliers. And if we're changing the game from EVs and solar back to coal, nuclear, geothermal, and things like that, will still be a need for distributed energy resource management. So in that sense, there's an out. On the other side, though, the problem is so many of these applications, they were leaning heavily into the EV, into the solar, into the hydro. I am concerned about how long it'll take to backtrack, refine, and retool the strategy for some of these assets. So, to answer the question, Trump's big, beautiful bill, is it good for the crypto space? I'm going to say yes and no. I will say it opens doors for crypto, and it also shuts doors for crypto. This big, beautiful bill has the same impact on the crypto space that it is having on the American people. Some of them agree with it. Others are about ready to leave the country because of it. Either way, guys, this was bound to happen, in my opinion. And there was no other way to get around it. But to truly wrap up my point here, if it is going to be a good situation for crypto, what should we do? I think we should look for assets or applications that will, one, bridge medical systems. That is going to be a hot commodity, because we all know these healthcare systems, they have a major problem with communicating with each other. This is obvious. So there will be a need to solve that problem. And then you also have to look at the geothermal, Bitcoin mining, and the management of energy resources. The management of energy resources are now going to be the new hot ticket. It won't just be EV or solar charging stations around the country. No, we're redefining our energy sources, which will make energy resource management paramount. I didn't expect this to turn into a positive story for Energy Web token, but that's the only asset on this in this market that I know specializes in those things. Now, as far as those other green related applications, the carbon credits and what V better is essentially where they have you completing certain tasks that are good for the environment, recycling, throwing away trash. Am concerned also about the ripple effect it'll have on the behavioral changes and the behavioral progress that has been made towards the green movement. Thinking about that as well, because that'll also impact the rate of adoption and the rate of use of applications of that nature. So a lot of things are going to get shaken up. My advice: move with conviction, stick to your research, because this was all going to happen anyway. Thanks to the G20, baby. This was all going to happen anyway. But let's jump forward. Talk a little bit of altcoin news, guys. Crypto.com's Kronos has achieved instant finality, putting it in the top 10 fastest blockchains on the market, which is not necessarily easy to do, guys. And it's important that I tell you what finality is. When you're dealing with transactions per second, that's the payments discussion, okay? How many payments can you process in a second, right? We already know some of the most premier blockchain networks, payment networks, they're peaking at 1,000 transactions per second. I'm trying to recall transactions per second in the crypto space that are plus 1,000. That list is very exclusive, right? Very exclusive. But finality is a bit different. Finality on a blockchain has more to do with not just payment transactions, but interactions on your blockchain. So let's just say you're using an app and you want to explore their Web3 browser, so that way you can get involved with the NFT marketplaces on that particular chain. You get into that browser and it takes you a total of 5 minutes to navigate from the wallet portion to the browser, to the particular site you want to get to the particular NFT you want to find. If it takes that long, that's because the chain you're using, their finality ain't that quick. When you're dealing with chains that have instant finality, like Algorand, Avalanche, BNB, Celo, Kronos now, moving around the app is almost as seamless as your banking application or a social media app, moving through Twitter, moving through YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. That's the importance about finality. And in the blockchain space, it is even more crucial because, as they explain in a press release, this directly impacts user interface and usability of your particular application. It just puts the nail in the coffin for a new person coming into crypto. They want to get involved with DeFi. They finally get their money together. They finally learn how to take funds from one chain to another in order to get involved with the DeFi. And then they get to the DeFi application and it's sluggish and it's clunky and it looks like crap. And on top of all of that, it's slow. That's finality. That's too high. It's too many seconds. I have observed in my 6 years in this space, certain chains achieving this. Not every network can achieve this. As a matter of fact, I'm getting this data from ChainSpec. You go to ChainSpec's list and you can see they updated fresh this morning. You'll only see about 12 networks that have already achieved instant finality. So when it comes to asking the question, is it time to buy Kronos now? I'm thinking about it. Because, like I said, this is tough to achieve. This is definitely tough to achieve, guys. But now that crypto.com has done it, it magnifies all of which you're seeing here. Okay? All of the stuff you're seeing here, from gaming to lending to wallets to yield to exchanges, NFTs, infrastructure partners. This is going to improve the interface, the connectivity across the board, ladies and gentlemen. And when you zoom out and look at the macro for crypto.com, man, I know I haven't covered it in a long time, but I keep my eye on the Chronos network. It's hard to avoid Chronos, especially with how much I watch sports. It's hard to avoid crypto.com. All right. Just got done watching Chicago street race. What did I see on one of them walls? Crypto.com. All right. It's tough to avoid. But with this now instant finality, ladies and gentlemen, this puts them in rarefied air. It puts them on the same tier as Solana. Genuinely. The only difference is the price at this point. So, just to make it clear, because I did write down specifically what would be improved, we're looking at increased overall transaction throughput. So this not only includes finality, but there will be a bump in transactions per second, near instant responsiveness, and improved developer interface for applications, reduced latency for real-time on-chain transactions. So again, their NFT exchange, NFT interface, their DeFi, which is ran by VVS Finance. All of these little things are about to improve, ladies and gentlemen. So if you've been using Chronos, if you've been using crypto.com, or if you've been thinking about getting into crypto.com, this would be the best time. Because I still remember when they were piecing all of this stuff together, ladies and gentlemen, when this ecosystem wasn't nearly as big as it is, and this isn't even an updated snapshot. This is like 2023. Crypto.com is tokenizing stocks. Crypto.com is supporting yield RWA instruments here in the United States. Crypto.com has added PayPal USD into their fold. Crypto.com has added USDC into their fold. And Crypto.com already had Tether. They're also launching prepaid debit cards for US customers, which is something I hadn't seen in this space. And then just to put the icing on the cake, they've extended their relationship with the Philadelphia 76ers. I remember when I added crypto.com to my Elite 8 in 2021, 2022. Folks, I'm about ready to do it again. This is that time. Between July and October is when I began to craft the Elite 8 for the next cycle. And with everything that we have learned since we last set up an Elite 8 in 2023, it is even tougher to put these to make this list, man. It's even tougher to put this list together. All right. But Chronos, guys, I like what I'm seeing coming out of it. Now that they've achieved instant finality from a technical level, from an operational standpoint, you can't beat crypto.com. Chronos can't be touched. It's got the EVM compatibility, and under the hood, it's running something called the Cosmos SDK. Guys, I do not know why Cosmos is not getting the credit it deserves when pretty much all of these networks that don't use Ethereum are using Cosmos. Just as powerful, fast, speed. But the thing is, with Cosmos, we're talking about an infrastructure play. So that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. At the end of the day, though, should you buy it? Like I said, I'm thinking about it. I'm genuinely thinking about it. Because I like to see those technical updates. And achieving instant finality, that ain't easy. That really ain't easy. But coming up, guys, we're going to address a little drama in the room. Has Ripple abandoned XRP? And if so, does it even matter? You know what? I don't think it does. We're going to talk about it. Come on back. Hey guys, I got a quick message for you. Let's say you're looking to buy some crypto, like the ones mentioned in this video. Consider using our crypto exchange partner, Uphold. With Uphold, you get access to more than 200 crypto assets through its simple-to-use trading platform. Uphold has been around more than a decade, so it is a name you can trust. With over $2 billion in reserves and $44 billion in trading volume, I've yet to lose a trade on Uphold. To the more experienced investor out there, Uphold also has a line of precious metals and national currencies for more diversification. For me, I'm having fun using Uphold's baskets tool. Uphold lets us set aside a certain amount of money to invest in different sectors of crypto. With one click, you can diversify into the big three, meme coins, or the financial assets like Hedera, Stellar, and XTC. But listen, crypto assets are very volatile, and it is always best to manage your risk and do your own research before using any platform. I recommend Uphold because before I was an affiliate, I was and still am a user. So if you use the link below, it helps support the channel. I want to thank you in advance. Little drama in the building. Man, there's always something going on with the Ripple XRP community. And I wanted to chime in on this story because I see what a lot of you see in the XRP space. It feels, looks, smells, and talks like Ripple is getting further and further away from the XRP ledger. Shout out to Crypto Area for capturing the information. Brad Garlinghouse, Ripple CEO, during a Singapore press conference stated that the stablecoin RLUSD can be used as collateral for all services at Hidden Road. Now, a lot of you are familiar with the Hidden Road relationship. I want to say this was May? Was it early May when it officially popped off? Ripple acquired Hidden Road. Hidden Road has ties to players like the DTCC for the 24/7 settlement of digital securities here in the United States. So a lot of people were speculating that Ripple XRP would be tied all up in that. Granted, I don't place blame on them for reaching that conclusion because all of the eggs were there. But continuing this here, it was emphasized that RLUSD will be the first stablecoin enabling efficient large-scale cross-margin trading between virtual assets and traditional financial markets that we've heard before. 24/7 year-round availability. So this sparked a lot of backlash from the community because a lot of people are saying that where's the XRP part, right? Where's the XRP token? On the surface, this looks as though the RLUSD is actually the bridge asset as opposed to XRP, which is what we were told all these years it would be. Now they're using a stablecoin. So this is definitely raising some questions, and it raised a few questions in my head also, because you also have to consider certain facts like 65% of RLUSD is printed on Ethereum. The majority of the volume on RLUSD is on Ethereum. Genuinely, if they backed the ledger as much as they said that they do, they could have minted it on the ledger. They should have minted it on the ledger from day one. It's merely a decision. Why did they choose to put more of it on Ethereum than they did the XRP ledger? Yes, you could say demand. You can say Ethereum's existing stablecoin market. I get that. That's a smart play. But a lot of people forget that Ripple was given XRP. Given. And with the exception of a family member, very close friend, how good are you at keeping up with things that people just give you? That you didn't work for, that you didn't necessarily have a hand in crafting, which is probably why Brito popped up when he did and has since gone back into seclusion, right? But how good are you at taking care of something that was just given to you without any point I'm making is a lot of people forget that Ripple was given XRP in the beginning. It was a token of appreciation. Simply. I say that to say that now we may be seeing what the true game plan was. Under this post, I found the most riveting clip I have ever seen. It's from Run the Jewels. I'm gonna share it with you in just a second. It's Monica Long. Y'all know who she is. Clip from last year saying some very interesting things about the XRP token. But before we get to that, let's dig a little bit deeper into the question of, has Ripple abandoned XRP? Ripple played a large part in the side chain that brought EVM compatibility and smart contracts to the ledger. Played a large part in that. So do I feel that they are abandoning the XRP ledger? Yes, but it's not as malicious as you think. Remember, this is all supposed to be open source technology. So what Ripple did was lift the XRP ledger and the XRP token and thusly the XRP community to prominence. Then they equipped it with an enterprise grade stablecoin and enterprise grade functionality thanks to the EVM compatibility and the smart contracts. If Ripple decides in its next 5 years to start separating itself from the XRP ledger, don't be shocked. Because even Daniil Dixon has come out and stated, why don't you bring that old RLUSD over here? Where else could RLUSD pop up? Solana. It can pop up on Bitcoin. Oh, Justin Sun. Justin Sun was like, hey, why don't you bring that RLUSD over here? They're already getting major offers from other networks. What makes you think they not finna take that bread? Okay? If OpenCoin gifted them the XRP, what's stopping the Tron Foundation from gifting them some TRX? What's stopping the Ethereum Foundation, Consensus, and the Lubin Boys from gifting them some Ethereum if they already don't have it? Point I'm getting at here is, if we begin to see Ripple separate itself from the XRP ledger over the next 5 years and RLUSD follows the same trajectory that Circle did with their stablecoin by adding numerous public networks to their offering, you can't get mad at that. And at the same time, if that is the case, the XRP ledger will be just fine because of the condition that they left it in. The EVM, the sidechain, the smart contracts. Now anything can be built on the XRP ledger. This is the most mind-blowing conclusion I've probably ever come to. They returned the gift. They kind of returned the gift, didn't they? They did. But to answer the question, has Ripple abandoned XRP? Yeah. But that was probably the whole point. Because again, it's not necessarily abandonment if it was never truly yours. With everything in crypto being open source, these networks are for everybody. Moral of the story is this. There's two ways you could look at it. One, the XRP ledger will be just fine on its own, thanks to its ability to do just about everything any other popular blockchain can do. NFTs, RWAs, video games, payments, wallets, CBDCs, IoT, healthcare, supply chain, it can all run on the ledger. Then on the other side, you do run the risk of the, what I like to call BitBoy effect, where Ripple without XRP could look a lot like Discover Crypto without BitBoy. Yeah, they still got a 1.4 million subscribers. Ain't nobody really watching them videos no more. When BitBoy left, the brand went with it. So there is, in that aspect, in that sense, I do fear that a Ripple without an XRP or an XRP without a Ripple is a completely different, that's a completely different ballgame. So, are they abandoning the ledger? Seems like it, feels like it. But at the end of the day, if they are, it is the natural order of things in the crypto space. It's all open sourced. It's all meant to be decentralized. There isn't supposed to be a leader. There isn't supposed to be one that rules them all. So I guess the better question should be, is Ripple abandoning XRP good or bad? Looks like a good thing to me, quite honestly. But let me jump to this clip here, because I feel like this confirms what their plans will be for the next 5 years.
When you think about major corridors like US dollar, euro, there's a lot of liquidity there. You don't really need a bridge asset like XRP. And that was the inventors of the ledger, the way that they'd always talked about. And, when I think back to the very early days of Ripple, what we had always talked about was the use case for a neutral cryptocurrency as a bridge asset. So like XRP in this case would be, for in the future of the Internet of Value, there's going to be all kinds of things tokenized on chain. And you need an asset like that for really efficient cross currency or cross token settlement it's more the long tail. Let me simplify it. It's more the long tail of assets and currencies where the costs, when you think in the context of cross-border payments, you have different currency crosses between a sub-Saharan African country and the Middle East or Europe. And the liquidity is not as great. The costs are very high. You could pay, north of 10% on that in fees for a payment like that. So that's where we see XRP having its role.
So we reached this conclusion as well when we had a discussion a few months back on which one should you hold, Stellar or XRP. Stellar is the future of wallet technology. The XRP ledger, specifically will manage currency conversion. Ripple is an enterprise financial institution that wants to become a bank. They're on their own tip, okay? What she just described being done with the ledger can be done by any party that builds on the ledger. Any party with the financial means to do so. I would love to wake up one day and a completely new financial player adopts the XRP ledger. Let's just say it is Bank of America. According to the speculation, they've been designing patents and technology around it for years. Not Ripple, but the ledger itself. If Ripple is getting ready to abandon the XRP ledger in any sense, whether outright or a shift towards the RLUSD, that opens the door for another financial institution to take its place that could potentially do everything that everyone thought Ripple would do. So looking at it that way, this is fantastic. This is a fantastic situation for the XRP ledger. And just to add on this, another company, 200 million to be tokenized on the XRP ledger. Should have wrote down their name. But that again shows you Ripple put the ledger in a position to succeed. And if they decided to Yoda it from this point, so be it. Because other big players are now coming into the fold and they want to interact with the ledger. They don't want nothing to do with Brad. They want to interact with the ledger. And as a token holder, that is what you should be watching out for. So, coming up, guys, we're going to wrap the show, talk a little bit of blockchain games. Tezos has landed a pretty interesting title. Guys, Tezos, sorry about that. Tezos has landed a pretty interesting first-person shooter. Comes with a $30 million deal, $30 million budget, but it's backed by some industry veterans in the space. So I think it'll give it a particular leg up. Come on back. We're going to break it down.
Another beautiful day in Morova.
Welcome to Morova, Reaper.
Enemy spotted. Follow me. Need backup. Reaper Actual coming soon.
So yeah, all of that is about to make its way to the Tezos network, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking Reaper Actual. Pretty interesting title coming from Distinct Possibility Studios. It is set up to be an open world, massive multiplayer online first person shooter. All right, don't get at me. I'm not a gamer, but I'm trying to give y'all the proper language so you know we all know what we talking about here. But we've all played shooting games before: Call of Duty, Fortnite, all of that, PUBG. This is essentially the same thing. That we ain't got to get into. What I want to get into is how they plan to incorporate the Web3 element. This is very interesting. As you can tell by the logo, Distinct Possibility Studios, run by former EverQuest creator John Smedley. This game makes Web3 optionable, and they're doing that through Tezos's Etherlink Layer 2. So Tezos is a pretty powerful chain, but it also suffers from the lack of visibility. Because if you haven't noticed, the flow of information in crypto, highly controlled. That's why recently I've made a push to tell you guys everything. I ain't pulling no punches because ain't nobody in my pocket. I'm completely independent. That gives me the freedom to tell y'all about any asset that may be making a dent anywhere in the space. And Tezos is definitely one of those assets. Now, what also makes this interesting, outside of the Web3 being optional, is that it's backed by a company called Brevin Howard Digital, that $30 million. Now, Brevin Howard, they've been involved in alternative investing, is what they describe it as, since 2002. And recently, they actually worked with JP Morgan and on their JP Morgan coin for settlements involving a DLT, something that Tezos is very familiar with. So I like to see the backing from a major financial institution that is not involved with the gaming world. They're an investor in alternative vehicles, so they're more prone to identifying the novel investments with the biggest potential. I'm telling you, Tezos is one of them. Just look at their website. Everything that we hear in the mainstream news cycle in crypto, because it has one now. Yeah. As anti-establishment as all these crypto entities try to be, you've become what you hate. Okay? And you're doing the exact same thing. But I'm digressing here. Tezos is a multi-purpose blockchain that has stood the test of time. DeFi, NFTs, gaming, payments, the list goes on. Before Society Generale came to Stellar with their Euro stablecoin, they dropped it on Tezos. Okay? Kelly or Kathy and Arthur Brightman, married couple, who have a very strong passion for the arts and video games, created a blockchain to serve both those communities. Now, say what you want about the price chart. I get that. Lack of visibility. I get that. But this is why some of us will tell you to do your own research. Because when you do your own research on Tezos, there is no leaky faucets. You won't run into not one story about a scam. They battled the SEC ages ago and won, and nobody talked about it. Now they're entering the world of gaming with a high performance, constantly upgrading blockchain architecture. Yeah. Let me talk a little bit more about Tezos. I really am. Because in the world of multi-chain things, multi-purpose blockchains, Tezos is one of the greats. I remember a couple years ago, this was for the Grammys. One of an NFT platform built on Tezos was responsible for the swag bags given to celebrities at the Grammys for that year. If I'm not mistaken, it was 2023. These are stories and innovations that are happening in the real world that you won't hear or see about because everybody is following trends. They're following the trends. Now, I must add this here because this is the element of the story that truly brought me in. This new title, Reaper Actual, will be launched on Epic Games and Steam. It's a PC game. It's mainly driven or aimed at fans of first-person shooters. It's got an interesting story. Player-based decisions affect the outcome of the game. So it's appealing to that audience. What I like about their strategy is they're separating their Web 2 audience from their Web 3 audience. The Web 3 side is 100% optional. As a matter of fact, they don't even advertise it during the main promo for the game, which means traditional gamers can play throughout the entire game without ever being sold an NFT. That's a good thing because part of the pushback that we saw in 2021 that was just crazy was traditional gamers not quite getting the NFT mechanics. Granted, though, okay, because as part of my research, I like to get as much hands-on experience as I can. So, downloaded Xbox Cloud, got back into the gaming world, messed around with the NVIDIA, the GeoForce thing, Amazon's Luna, right? Cloud service providers, things like that. That was as close as I needed to get to the current state of the gaming world to understand that, okay, if you pay $65 for a game, why do you have to pay $25 for the items in that game? Okay, you need a weapon to get through the first level. That weapon, $25. You need an extra health kit to get through that level. That health kit, $4.99. You want a bulletproof vest to help you get through this level. That bulletproof vest, $12.99. You need an extra magazine for your gun. That magazine, $3.99. So when people started to come into the gaming space talking about buy and sell these NFTs on top of paying for everything else, they said, oh, hell no. We're not dealing with that. We don't want that. And already Reaper Actual is getting that exact same pushback. But here's the thread here. Here's the hole in the offense that I think they can run through and score. It's the making it optional. And this also falls in line with a pattern that other Web3 blockchain games are following. It's optional. You can play the game the same way you play some of your favorite games. They're making the entire interface exactly the way it is in the current gaming world. This will also almost make the Web3 element invisible. But here's what that looks like on the next page. When the Web3 element is in the background and it isn't being spoken about, it isn't being trashed. If the Web3 element, I'll use this as an example. Immutable, the guy who runs Immutable, he posted out, if GTA 6 something, or if GTA 6 drops a gaming token, it better be interoperable or something. I'm like, bro, if GTA 6 drops a gaming token, it better be on Immutable. Okay? It just better be on Immutable. The way that could happen is by placing Immutable in the background. Okay? Let's stick in the world of GTA for a second here. You're playing GTA. Everything's running fine, smoothly. You go on a side mission, though, to a check cashing place. And in the check cashing place, there's a Bitcoin ATM. Now, you remember how, and I believe you still can, hop in the taxi and do taxi missions and collect funds that way. Let's say you can keep going back to this ATM throughout the game. And then by the time you finish the game, you got about, a few Satoshis or whatever the digital currency they put into the game. Now, it only makes sense in the world of Web3, using the analogy, the example, and the strategy that Reaper actually has put forth. It only makes sense that currency has an out. It does. It only makes sense. And that is where the Web3 element, the optional Web3 element, is so powerful. Because I won't even tell you. You can withdraw them digital tokens. I'm not going to tell you that. I don't want to tell you because it's going to spark an argument. But let's just say somebody, a gamer, is crypto savvy. And he plays through GTA 6. And he gets to those side missions with those Bitcoin ATMs. And he F around and make $1 million. Okay. Oh, Rockstar, PlayStation, everybody is going to have something to say. It's going to change the game. Now, obviously, this is speculation. But in this, we so early, ladies and gentlemen, this is how we got to see things. We got to have a certain level of foresight based on the information that's being displayed in front of us. And we got to come to a conclusion that's powerful. So to wrap it all up, guys, I like what Reaper Actual is doing by making the Web3 angle optional. The fact that Tezos through Etherlink, which is their EVM compatible layer 2 solution, where anything that can happen on Ethereum can happen on Tezos, that is going to bring an added layer of attention to Tezos. In the future, we will discuss more XTZ, because another thing that Tezos has that a lot of people overlook is a very strong media arm. Very strong. Very strong marketing. Very strong promotion. So with that, guys, that's all I got for you. I'm going to get out of your hair for today's show. Again, don't forget to check out the educational material linked in the description under this video, as well as in the pinned comment. You have your DHN starter kit, the dossier, your dossier to the world of blockchain, the DHN 100, a collection of 100 crypto assets and the utilities that they provide. If you really want to have a conversation on utility, you start with this document. Then we have Blockmaster. This is a more personal piece. It's focused on the fundamentals of blockchain. If you really want to study this technology at a core level, this is the piece for you. So with that, there's various other ways to help support the channel. I'll let you find those on your own, and y'all know what time it is. If that money is digital, so is the hustle.